Good afternoon to our friends on the East Coast, and good morning to our friends on the West Coast. And welcome to today's webinar with Wealthbox and our friends from Asset-Map, how advisors use Asset-Map and Wealthbox to grow their practice. We're going to give everyone a minute or two to make their way in here. A couple reminders before we get things kicked off. Today's webinar will be recorded, and you will be getting a copy of that recording. Also, if you have any questions as we go through things today, do feel free to utilize the Q&A portion with Zoom here. We will come back to those questions during the presentation or at the back end of the presentation. So again, feel free to use the Q&A section there. With that, we'll give it about 60 seconds for folks to make their way in, and we'll get things kicked off.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Did my audio change, by the way? Is that better or worse?
That's a good radio sound now, Adam. You're good to go.
Okay, good. All right. I was using some kind of speaker. I don't know. Did it change over time?
It's good. Good to go. All right. As folks make their way in, again, welcome to today's webinar with Asset-Map and Wealthbox. Today, we're going to be going over how advisors use Asset-Map and Wealthbox to grow their practice. And once again, we will be recording today's call, and you will be getting a copy of the recording. My name is Andrew Ladwig, Director of Business Development here at Wealthbox. I work with our custodial, our broker-dealer, as well as our integration partners. And today, I'm really excited to be joined by a couple of our friends from Asset-Map, including Allison Susko. Allison, we'd love to get a little bit of your background here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us again, Andrew. We love doing Wealthbox webinars and get to do a couple throughout the year. So a great way to add another one to the list. I'm Allison Susko, VP of Community over at Asset-Map. I've been here for, over 6 years now and been an industry lifer. So I've been at companies like eMoney and DocuPace before Asset-Map. And I am so lucky to work with a lot of the similar groups that Andrew just mentioned, broker-dealers, integration partners. I work a lot on our compliance as well. So of course, if you have any questions on those items, always feel free to reach out. And I'm excited to talk to you all today about using Asset-Map and Wealthbox together. It's a dream team for technology. And I'm going to pass it over to Adam to introduce himself as well.
Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody. Yes, my name is Adam Holt. I'm the founder and CEO of Asset-Map. It says it right there. I'm also a recovering financial planner. So for those of you that know, I've been 26 years in the business, building a practice on the investment and insurance worlds, wealth management, turned to estate planning, all the other fun stuff that probably many of you are doing today. So a great passion for the business, and a lot of what has come together, certainly in both of these products, is really a culmination of best practices put into new tech. So things that we've all been doing for years and always complained about and said, wish the tech could do it. That's the stuff that we're both building together to just create an unbelievable experience in the field working with our clients.
And on that note, Adam, as we get things kicked off with a discussion here, 26 years in the industry, we've seen a ton of technology, both on the advisor side of things, as well as more client-facing side, right?
Yeah.
From that standpoint, should advisors be worried about the fact that there's more technology in front of not only their clients, but available to them? Or how should they be looking at that?
No, I think they should be scared to death. I mean, think about it. Like even 10, 15 years ago, we could probably close our clients, convince them, give them confidence with a yellow pad and a pen and a HP calculator, right? This business has evolved drastically. And of course, the relationship currency that we all have with our clients arguably is still the most valuable asset we have between them. In fact, obviously so many people are moving around firms in the industry. 80% of those clients are moving with them. They're not moving because they're bringing their technology with them. They're moving because of relationship. That being said, you can't argue today that clients and advisors are not distracted by the newest gadgets that are floating around that are promising to make their lives extremely simple and maybe even free for that which we have charged, reasonable compensation for many years. So the AI movement combined with robo may actually be dangerous, I think, to advisors. And that's why it's really important that advisors make sure they keep pace with the experience and also the time that they could potentially get back to deliver more human currency, more relationship currency, more human value. And I think that's going to be the real challenge for all of us is is how do you use this tech, not overwhelm the client with tech and still stay human in an age when everybody's just getting inundated.
And Allison, you mentioned you jokingly said you're a lifer with a couple different technology companies that work with advisors. How have you seen that dynamic change for advisors, not only bringing on new technology to their practice, but actually utilizing it to deepen those relationships?
Totally. I mean, I just as we were talking about this, I was thinking about an integration that we set up years ago, and not at Asset-Map, but a previous company. And the integration was, let's load up everything in Outlook into this financial planning software. And it's like, it took everybody's contact, anything, like whether you've emailed your grandma or if it was a client, and brought it into a platform. And we thought that was innovative at the time. And it turned out to just be more of a giant distraction. And that's because at the time, integrations as we know them now were in their infancy. There was nothing that was super valuable at the time, or at least thoughtful. And I think that's really the word is, make choices for you as far as technology goes, integrations between companies that's thoughtful. And it's actually going to support what you're trying to do in your practice. So, look out for new technology. There's so many great companies that are doing amazing things and solving for great things that, you might not even know about, that isn't maybe one of the traditional companies that we all hear about. So keep your mind open and see what's out there and see what really fits with your practice and let it evolve accordingly. Don't just, use what the status quo is. Really think about what your goals are as a company and make sure it matches up, and then integrate as it makes sense. That's really just something I think a lot about.
And with that in mind, Adam, 20 plus years and much of that on the advisor side, I'm guessing your role has gone from very much a product or solution delivery standpoint to now it's very much an experience delivery, a service delivery standpoint. How has technology helped that evolution, and what do you see coming up on that side of things?
It's interesting because I think the move that most of us made to financial planning 20 years ago was really a sales enablement process, right? We used financial planning because it was the right way to go about an analysis to prove to the client, listen, you should probably manage your money differently and we can do that for you. Or you should probably restructure your insurance and we can do that for you. We monetized it pretty much the same way. Although we know there's been a transition to more fee-based mindset for the years, and that's going to continue to evolve. I think the key for technology, and Allison really touched on it, is that it's so easy to just keep buying gadgets and tech, but it's not about that. It's actually the tech that you do use that gives you back the utility and the time. So we have seen, for the most part, those of us that are using a financial planning tool or an engagement tool around advice, CRM, and some portfolio management, as even Kitsis has always argued, right? Those things need to really talk to each other because it's the core. But we have also seen some really great tech that people are bringing in that's not integrated, that they can use episodically with, a specific, like an estate planning or a social security module. It doesn't really need to be integrated. But I think the kind of take back to that is, because we have so much capability, we got to help ourselves not get distracted and ask ourselves, does this help me deliver better advice to my clients, which has the highest return on investment? I'm going to earn referrals. I'm going to get credibility. I'm going to expand the wallet share if I'm spending more time with the client. So we tend to think moreover, and why it's important that people pay attention to this, with using your CRM Wealthbox and in this case, Asset-Map together. I'm going to show you actually a couple techniques that have been really working in the field to engage more opportunity to both grab wallet share as well as expand our business using technology. And it's very human. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you, Andrew.
Yeah, and also on the flip side, the opportunity cost of not engaging in those conversations, right? With that, I know, Adam, you've got a bit of a case study to walk through on a ground level where Asset-Map can fit within that conversation to, again, maximize the efficiency, also open up for more wallet share, more opportunity to serve clients. If you want to dive into that and start taking a look at that, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Let me show you. I'm going to take about 5 or 7 minutes to kind of walk you through, everybody who's joined us today, a case study that I think is really endemic of the challenges that we're all dealing with. Most of our clients, I would say, that are in this either early or kind of depends on the boomers kind of strategy of where they are in the generation, if you will. They're dealing with typically a sandwich generation. One of the things that keeps coming up, I think, in all of the media is this idea of the wealth generation transfer, right? This huge amount of money, 80 some $trillion that's going to move from one generation to the next, predominantly from the boomers, in the form of qualified funds, non-qualified real estate, and business interests. And this is going to move and or be consumed, as we all know, right? So the question is, how do we actually start working with clients and bring this topic up today? And one of the most interesting things we've seen, the use of Asset-Map, and for those of you that don't know, Asset-Map is, as you can see, a visualization of all of the people and entities for which there is some financial interdependency. And depending upon who you've selected, you're seeing their income sources, their assets and liabilities organized by status of qualification, different types of instruments, things you can hopefully see and recognize, their joint assets and liabilities, and lastly, the insurances that protect them. So everything in their financial closet is effectively dumped on this page and organized in a way that you know, what is it, where is it, what's it worth, who owns it, what's the tax wrapper. That's an important aspect for all of us who walk into a meeting to say, this is a reflection of the facts that you've given me, either from direct integrations or you just told me you have an account. And therefore, I'm giving it back to you in an organized fashion. And what Asset-Map is known for is the ability to drill down and look at these different situations, maybe just the kids, or maybe I just want to talk about my son and the islet that I set up for his special needs. Or maybe I want to talk about my trust that my dad set up, and we're going to look at my mother-in-law because we need to have a conversation of where that money needs to move. And this is where it brings up all of us who've lived in advice for years. Help us bring the original AI to the table, advisor intelligence, so that we can show that we're thinking about what's going on in their life and we're bringing ideas to the table. So in a strange way, as Andrew mentioned, we're using technology to facilitate a conversation in a way that's novel and different. And at the end of the day, most clients are saying, hey, you know what, can I have a copy of that? I want to take that home to my partner, to my spouse, and I want to talk about this. Now, how does that relate in today's world with this idea of wealth transfer? Well, one of the things that I'm going to actually preview, we didn't plan on doing this, but we actually just created this concept of a relationship map. So the funny thing about most households, and probably even your own household, it's some dynamic to it. Sometimes it gets complicated. There are different dependencies, and it evolves from beyond our core clients, in this case, Ben and Betsy. Their names have been changed if you're not familiar with those names. That have children. They have Thomas that Ben has from a prior relationship, and then they have a daughter together, Sarah. And I mentioned that Thomas has special needs. There's a life insurance trust out here for him. Betsy has a business partner over here with Jeff, and they own a company together. That's got certain complexities. And then mom is still alive and likely to be dependent upon Betsy because we have kind of a long-term care situation, but dad did set up a trust, which I don't manage. And the interesting thing about this is that we all learn information from our clients throughout that duration with them. I hope you can agree. Sometimes we need to ask deeper questions. For example, when we tend to think about retirement planning and let's say life insurance planning is the core to what we tend to do for our clients, sure, we can go in there and we can do a bunch of analysis, and an Asset-Map has many of these tools as well as indication. But what we're finding actually is really effective is having this discussion and saying, by the way, I see, Betsy, that mom may be dependent upon you. And without dad in this situation, are you clear that you understand your role as the executor and how that relates, or in this case, executrix, how that relates to your siblings who might now be, wondering when are they getting their money when this eventuality happens? Would it have high utility for us to get mom to go through a process where we're putting her asset map together for her? So what you just heard is language around an opportunity for us to say, maybe we need to do a visual catalog of what's going on in mom's lives. Maybe we need to do that for her for your own benefit. So what if we went to our existing clients and say, you know what, I need to engage generation zero, that'd be the generation over you, because I need to make sure we're doing the right things. We thought about estate planning, legal documents, ownership, beneficiary situations. We've thought about that intentionally, and we've created a treasure map for mom. What would happen if we went to all of our clients and said, you know what, I want to do this process for mom, high level. We don't have to get into statements or allocations. Well, let's make sure we have a map of where everything's buried so that when you come into this role, that is really relevant. Think about how much utility that would add to your existing clients. Might it also create opportunity for you to start conversations? Oh gosh, oh my gosh, look at this. Okay, mom has long-term care insurance. You can see it here. But there's this huge group of trust assets. And Nobody knows what's going on there. Has anybody looked at it? Is it sustainable? What? So it gives us the opportunity to go and explore that. And that's really what we all want, is the opportunity to serve and bring those ideas of our team and ourselves to the table, right? Maybe we got to wonder, what is this rental property out here that you've got? Who owns that? How is that going to transfer? Does it need to stay in the family? There's all kinds of fun questions that one might ask, and there are opportunities to help them. And if you've been in the business any length of time, you probably know what I'm talking about. But the key of this utility is to say, we need to protect our clients from the eventuality that they are going to be left as the decider, trustee, executrix, executor of a basket of things that they have no transparency into. None. Okay. They might know there's a bank account here or there's a house there, but they really don't need this, and they need to do this process. I encourage you to do this. The same thing holds true for generation 2. So when you think about this, you've got a situation here, I already mentioned it to you, where you have Thomas Franklin, who is a special needs, and Sarah is too young to take over. So the question of who are other parties that I need to engage and be responsible to, especially since there's going to be a significant amount of money in this special needs trust, how do I engage the next generation? If Thomas was an adult child and he had probably started, doing life on his own, what about approaching Ben and Betsy and saying, perhaps we need to do this process to bring them into the table, bring them to the table of what we would call a family meeting? And I actually just did this with one of our largest clients still at the old firm I used to manage, because they still have my cell phone and they want me to be there. They have that relationship currency. Remember, they don't care that I sold the business. They want me to be there. And they say, listen, Adam, what do you think we should do? I said, we should bring in the next generation and the trustees of all your trusts and the executors and your powers of attorney to a family meeting. We're going to sit around the table and we're going to talk about this and their responsibilities for your treasure map, to manage it and all the infrastructure we've put in place to make sure it moves smoothly. One of the bigger challenges I've already mentioned is that a lot of clients are coming into these roles. They have no idea what they've obligated themselves to. Friends of families, now they're the guardian of the kids, or they're the trustee, and they don't really know what they've signed up for. So can we as advisors bring them in? Now, you might be asking, what does that have to do with Wealthbox specifically? And I'm going to share that. One of the things that we've also done here is we've connected this household directly with Wealthbox. So the ability to go right into Wealthbox and that record specifically right from the asset map gives us great utility, because as you all know, we might have a whole bunch of contact deals, workflows, projects, and process that we need to get to that might not be top of mind. So whether you're talking to anyone in this family, Betsy, or any of these parties up here, we can link them to Wealthbox and jump right back into the record when we need to do actions like workflows and a whole bunch of things. So this is exciting because I think for the first time, you're starting to see connectivity between these applications live in app. I can just jump to Wealthbox for Betsy and see some preliminary information on the fly. So that's where you're going to see some really great stuff. And I could do that in all the views that you saw there in Asset Map, from the family tree view all the way down to the asset view. We can go right into Wealthbox and do what we need to do. Now, I know this was important because a lot of you showed up to find out not only what you could do, but also how can you do this stuff. And so that's my entree into Allison to introduce you, to show us actually how our advisors taking advantage of these kinds of workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Adam. And I'm going to share my screen here as well in a second. Yeah. So we started working, just for a little bit of background, we started working with the Wealthbox team, gosh, I want to say 3.5 years ago, where we decided, you know what, there is no better source of data than the CRM. And I think we all know that. We trust our CRM data. We make sure that those dates of birth, those contact information pieces, address, that all of that is included. And it's so important to make sure you have that accurate, because you always want to put your best foot forward in a meeting. When you're talking to someone about their children, it's really valuable to them that you have their dates of birth correct, and that you have that newest baby that might have been born, even since the last time you met with them. That it really shows that you understand your client and their situation. So we are big proponents of, accurate CRM data over at Asset-Map. And sometimes in some of our processes where we're just trying to find out initially what's important to the client, we might want to verify back with Wealthbox to make sure that those pieces of information, especially like dates of birth and how many kids they have, is accurate. And that's really where, like Adam said, the utility of connecting Wealthbox to Asset-Map is hugely valuable. So we did that actual API integration that is basically just like you would imagine any other CRM integration. I'm not going to walk you through that piece. It's as clear as day. You jump into Asset-Map, you put your username and password into the Asset-Map system and integrations for Wealthbox, and that opens up almost that pipeline where you can go in and search for any client that you have in the Wealthbox system, including, you know, Ben and Betsy Franklin and the household that we just looked at. But what we decided to do with the Wealthbox team just a few months ago, and it was really genius on their part, is in addition to the ability of course, connecting over that great, valuable, accurate data, let's also build some workflows with this client and say, you know what, I have a process maybe as an advisor that I like to go through to make sure I'm really onboarding effectively with my client. And the Asset-Map team and the Asset-Map platform has a system called Discovery that is going to be a wonderful fact finder for you to find out information from your client or prospect before they even come into the meeting. And when Andrew and Megan and the team came to me a few months ago and said, we would really love to get a workflow built with Asset-Map, and I know they have maybe a dozen or so partners they've done this with, I said, I think onboarding is the way to go for our first discovery, for our first kind of workflow project with Wealthbox. And just to give you a bit of context on what Asset-Map Discovery is, if you've never seen it, it's a really, really easy, client-friendly, prospect-friendly fact finder that you can send over to someone before they come in and meet with you in the meeting. So I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but I want to give you an idea of what it looks like. So, you know, I'm going to make myself a couple years younger, because why wouldn't you? And we're going to pretend we're going to put our client hats on. That's what I like to say here. So pretend you're the client and you're going through this process. So simple. We're going to ask who's important to you in your family: spouse, kids, grandma, all those folks that Adam showed at the top of that screen a few minutes ago that are vital to your financial situation as a household. I'm going to keep it simple and just put myself in here. We're going to let them know they're doing a great job along the way. Well done. You know, we're kind of giving them some pictures, some animation, making it really fun for the client or prospect to complete this. What you want to think about as the advisor in the back of your mind is this is pre-building that asset map for you. Think about how valuable it would be if you hardly have any context about this person that you're about to meet with, that maybe you met in a seminar or whatever the situation might be. If you're prospecting, now you have insight into their family. You can think about great questions that you want to ask them in that first meeting, leading to value right off the bat. So you're going to think again like the client for a second. Yes, I have some income. I own a house. Yeah, I have a liability. I have a couple loans that are attached to the house, maybe a credit card. I have a couple insurance policies through work, checking and savings accounts. You know, maybe they're not a business owner, so they skip that. You get the point. 401k, and they can check off whatever or as much as they're comfortable with. Next up, they're going to give you a little bit more information. And I'm just going to show you how easy this is for them. And then we'll jump into the workflow. But I'm going to say, okay, in this case, we only have one person added here. We're going to say this is their job. And, you know, they're a salesperson and they make $190,000 a year. I made that up. $129,000 a year and save. And they're just going to go through that process. And again, as much as they want to share is completely fine. If they don't fill something out, it's actually going to give you a little placeholder on the asset map once you get in there. So I show you this to say, you know, before we jump into the workflow, this is a great way to find out more about a client or prospect before they come into the meeting. And it's one of my favorite parts of Asset-Map. So I immediately was drawn to doing this with the workflow. And think about it. You've asked them for some information. They're giving you some very high level detail. Wouldn't it be great to supplement that in a few minutes with that Wealthbox workflow, which can be a bit of a mouthful saying Wealthbox workflow. But we have this built out now. And this has been really cool. This is the second or third time I've done a workflow here within Wealthbox for Asset-Map, and it's going to do exactly what you would expect it to do. Your CRM is meant to keep you on task. It's meant to let you know when you're supposed to be getting something completed for the next step. And in this case, you're really leading up to that really valuable time that you have with your client, which is that first meeting and ongoing meetings. So just to work through a few pieces of the workflow, this is all around client discovery. We have the send discovery link to the client and prospect. And what's really, really cool about this is obviously we have a template built We can put some attachments in there to go ahead and show people exactly what this is about. So if you have staff supporting you, they know what's going on as well. And even a nice description. So that discovery I just walked you through that your client was able to complete, give you a little description. Prior to meeting with your client, find out more about them and the opportunity to fill out an asset map discovery leading up to the meeting. Personalized link is sent, and we're off and running with our first step of the workflow. We definitely want to make sure our client has completed that fact finder, right? So before we can move on to the next step, you actually have the ability to even add in some outcomes. Outcomes are going to allow you to say, you know what? I think I sent out the fact finder, but the client might have gotten busy and they missed it. We can actually jump back a step in Wealthbox as well and kind of start that process back where it needs to be kicked off to make sure we're staying on task and we're ready for the meeting. Some additional steps we have in here, follow up with the client, right? That outcome came out of seeing, okay, now we saw that they were able to complete that discovery questionnaire. Let's review that asset map report. What can we fill in that the client wasn't able to do? Let's load up Wealthbox. Maybe I know a little bit more about that client, something I have under management for them. Let's load that in as well. Make sure we're ready for that meeting to review the great visualization of the asset map that we've built out, both with the client and maybe through Wealthbox integration as well. So again, just going through the workflow here, let's connect up Wealthbox, add in any detailed contact information that the client might not have given us, and so on and so forth. We have some additional features that we're going to remind you about that you can use in Asset Map. A great feature that is called stencils that will actually pre-build some of those great boxes within the Asset Map report for you, almost as if to say, you know what, these are some really important things we need to talk about. Let's supplement the Asset Map report with some placeholders to make sure that we're having the most valuable conversation, talking about things that folks like them typically have in their situation. Confirm that meeting with the client. We want to make sure that everyone is on the same page and everybody is ready for the meeting. You're prepared with your asset map report. Your client has confirmed that they're going to be coming in with their spouse, and you feel fully ready to have that meeting and make sure it's successful. Because one of our goals at Asset Map is to always make sure that you're off and running with a client as soon as possible, making it as valuable as you can right from the jump. And I really feel like this client fact finder does that for us. Not to mention just ongoing review. So, set up a cadence that makes sense for you to meet with your clients. Is it every 6 months? Is it annually? That's going to be different for every firm and maybe every client relationship. But within the Wealthbox kind of asset map workflow, you can set it up however it makes sense for you. And Andrew can actually probably jump in here. Now, with these templates, Andrew, this is a good starting point for folks. Are they able to kind of tweak it a bit themselves and, maybe add steps or even duplicate and kind of tweak it a bit to make it match their own process?
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned that, Allison, my first thought goes to no two firms work exactly the same, right? And they've got some intricacies, some nuance to how they work. The beauty of this workflow is that every Wealthbox user, including those on a trial, have this available to them. And from there, they can go in, edit this, customize it. Perhaps they have a little bit of a different process for a little different background of clients or households that they're working with. So absolutely, they could use this out of the box, ready to go as is, or they could customize it, even make a couple different iterations within their own practice of this. But again, it allows for those best practices. And for those of you that use Wealthbox, and even for those that don't, you're going to be able to log in the morning, that Monday morning, and see exactly where those asset map workflows are at. So you can see exactly where the onboarding process is as well.
We love some customization and any kind of way that's better to work with our integration partners at Asset Map, and being able to create something like this and even create more. I'm sure we could build on this and do something else really exciting with the Wealthbox team. Something else that I'd be remiss if I didn't say, because I think it's really, really cool, specific to our discovery processes. Advisors that use Asset Map are having so much success with getting that initial data from their client before the meeting, using that link that I showed you, that they're actually building it into their complete calendar system by adding the link to the Calendly, really ensuring that, some advisors are getting to the point where they say, as a starting point of working with me, this is the process. You're going to be telling me about your family situation, even if it is, whatever you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be the full picture. I need to have some insight into what you've got going on before the meeting. And if the client shows a real willingness to do that, they're finding the relationship is really, really kicked off on a great foot. And sometimes to the point where they might not even decide to work with someone, or maybe they introduce them to someone else if they're not willing to do that kind of discovery step. So we're seeing such success with it that they're really kind of building it into their first meeting process, from calendar links to Calendly invites and so on and so forth. So really, really cool. And I think this workflow really supports, that whole process that we see a lot of people doing.
I'd throw out something else here too. One of the things that's really important, I think, as you start to scale your business and grow, is to delegate. And where I think it gets interesting is where we have a process that we need to teach our staff, our assistants, paraplanners, and otherwise, and we hope that they're going to do it. One of the ways to create that scale is to get the replication of action. And this is really important because sometimes people don't know exactly how to support us. If we can create a process that is going to get a reasonable result, just like a recipe, that's really where this works, I think, exceedingly well. But if you can't track it, you can't really inspect it, it's going to be really difficult to scale a practice and create the consistent experience. So I love the fact you guys are taking the time to build this for everybody. I could see great opportunities to customize this and kind of really make it your own.
Yeah.
As a reminder for those of you that are joining us, we do have a Q&A capability, so feel free to put in any questions. A couple questions that have already come through here, and I'm going to start off here. Adam, you mentioned this concept of a family meeting, right? And it's funny because it goes beyond just the family, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that concept and some best practices you've seen around that?
Yeah, I think the family meeting originally just made a boatload of sense because of the complexity, right? As you work up market and you have a high net worth, ultra high net worth clients, they typically have so much complexity that they need simplicity, but they also know that they have great dependency, not only on you, but also other professionals, legal, tax, they're going to play roles, and you learn of other people, trustees, executors, especially as estate planning becomes a bigger topic. Obviously, some tax law changes coming, as we all know. But inevitably, as we all know, that comes calling, and we need to either be prepared or not. We have seen a lot, and I'm sure all of you on the call have seen the outcome of not being prepared for an estate. Either you've lived through it personally, or you've witnessed someone else see the mess of that emotional drama added to the financial obscurity. And as the financial advisor, I think we need to take ownership and fiduciary responsibility for those events after our clients are here. And I think that shows great stewardship. So think about it from the standpoint of, we believe it's your actual expectation and near obligation to make sure that their estates pass the way that they intended with the smoothest of effect. And that means you need to be part of the process. So take charge, hold a family meeting, tell the client this is important and in their best interest, and then we'll share what we selectively want to share with those next gens and also those other parties. But be the facilitator and the catalyst for this. I tell you, it creates enormous trust and relationship value, not only between you and the family members who now look to you as, wow, this person knows where all the keys are. They're going to call you at this event when mom and dad leave us. But also the other professionals say, wow, you're doing this differently. And I think if you can complement that with a facilitation diagram, like an asset map, I think you just look brilliant. And so I think that's really where I think this is really got great utility. You could do this tomorrow if you signed up for Asset Map and weren't already.
We had a question come in, and I'll speak on the Wealthbox side to kick things off here about the ability to have a vault, a place to put documents, right? And within Wealthbox, we do have capabilities for document storage. Most often, though, for many firms, they're using some of our third-party integrations with Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, and ShareFile across their practice. Within Asset Map, is there a place to leverage, keep those documents or use them alongside that visual that you showed us there, Adam?
Pretty much every financial advisor I know, either their compliance team or otherwise, has already put in place a vaulting capacity or share file type of experience. We also do integrate with Box, Dropbox, and Google Drive, because that's where the consumers tend to have their data. And unless you want to rebuild a whole, a filing cabinet that they're never going to use, we decided not to build a vault and compete with all our friends who have done the vaulting. So we rather use what you guys have already created. I think it's interesting to see where that's going to change. As we all know, digital storage is a dime a dozen and it's free practically. Safety is really important and access is more important. So we have contemplated enabling our own version. But again, our client portal, which we rolled out about 6 months ago, has really been interesting because we see that becoming the linchpin between all of the family members who need to have high level awareness of where data is buried, where the accounts are, without necessarily having control, access, or transaction ability. We're seeing that actually having much better adoption than traditional aggregation portals, because as we all know, once you give clients login passwords, they start falling apart. So I think you're going to see an evolution here as clients expect that the quarterback, in this case, the financial advisor, does have purview over all things, including legal documents. And we are going to be actually adding this quarter legal documents to the asset map. So you'll be able to see all of the instruments in place without necessarily the file storage. That we are going to hold off on for now.
Really
I did
cool.
want to add one thing, because another question that tends to come up right after that question is Asset-Map does have a report history repository that, if you're running reports within our own system and you would love to see, how have things changed since, we were just talking about cadence of meetings, how have things changed since the last time we met, 9 months ago? If you do run that report in, the previous month's meeting, you can easily access it to see, wow, there have been some great strides that have happened since I've been working with this client. So that is capable within our system where we're not housing outside documents. Certainly you can go back and reference the great reports you can run in Asset-Map.
That's a great point, because think about the utility to a family when we say, like, I have the reports for the last 10 years on your parents. Know where everything's buried, why we made changes, why we moved it, why we brought in these trusts, why we moved this off balance sheet, why we consolidated these things, why we changed the beneficiaries, why we skipped a generation. All of those knowledge facts the clients' kids have no idea that you know about unless you show them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing. Why are you relevant? Why do we keep hearing that 97% of the clients will leave their parents' advisor when their parents leaves us, right? Leaves the planet. It's because there's no recognition that there is a relevance there, right? They don't relate to us in the same way. They don't have the same way of talking. But if they think that there's a reason to stay, maybe they will.
There's that connecting thread. One last question that came in. Generally, for advisors that have other financial planning tools in place, is Asset-Map taking the place of? Is it working in conjunction with? Can you speak a little bit to that?
That's a good question. I think all of us have different attitudes about that one, but I think most, Kitces tends to say that we're a complement to other financial planning tools. I tend to look at it this way, Andrew. There's tools I use with my client, in front of my client, and there's tools that I would never put in front of my client. I tend to think that traditional financial planning tools are analytical by nature and should stay behind the apron, behind the kind of, what's it called? The screen, with my paraplanner. And they're the analytical nature. I don't come anymore with an 80-page PDF I don't dunk that down on the page or send them an email. I know they're not going to read it. That's for me. That's analytical argument for me to say, okay, I understand what's going on. What we think Asset-Map is really fantastic at is in conversational financial planning. It's really discussing, why do we have this? It's dumping your financial closet on the bed and saying, okay, let's decide what deserves to go back in the closet and what clearly doesn't fit anymore, where we can add, subtract. And I think that conversational value tends to engage the under-engaged parties. That's usually the non-engaged spouse, right? The one who's not really paying attention, saying, hey, this is your problem, you deal with the money, who is going to become our client. And I think the key is to get them both engaged in a whole new way. And that's what we use Asset-Map for. So we have integrations with MoneyGuide Pro. You can push MoneyGuide to Asset-Map. We have more coming with the companies that you all know and probably use. But I think you're going to see this bifurcation, one between the analytical tools and certainly the AI that's going to put a lot of pressure on the analytical tools. I mean, think about it. You can go to a prompt and say, here's my data. What does my retirement look like? And it can tell you pretty well. It can run Excel for you too. I don't think that we're going to compete anymore for analytic capacity. We're going to compete for relationship and human currency. And that's you bringing your best advisor intelligence to the table and the team that you've put together to support your client's best interest. And if you don't do that, yes, be worried. But I think that the key is, if you can still stay relevant, I think that's going to be the differentiating factor.
I do want to finish off with the Asset Map team here before we share with you how to get in touch with us. Allison, I know we're both really excited. We've got an event coming up where Wealthbox will be participating with Advice Tech Live.
Yeah.
If you want to give a bit of background, and I know we've got a QR code for those that are joining us today. If you'd like to sign up, you can do so right from here. But Allison, we'd love to hear the background.
Everybody grab your phones and to get registered. It's a free event that's charitable. So it's coming up in just over a month, where we're going to have 20 tech vendors give their best 10-minute presentations telling you about all the amazing things they're working on as company to support the advisor and client relationships. All the things we were just talking about today, so important. And we have firms that you've heard of, great companies like Wealthbox that are huge in the industry, also some great up and coming companies as well. And you really can't miss it. Definitely get registered. You can access the recordings even if you're busy that day. But it's proven in our 5th year to be a very exciting event to attend, and the sponsors and speakers are truly phenomenal. So take your phone out, get registered, make sure you can access it, and it's all for a great cause as well. These sponsors that are supporting us have really are helping us support an amazing charity in Philadelphia. So definitely get registered, and we look forward to seeing you there for our virtual event. And Wealthbox, thank you again for joining us for another year.
Absolutely. For those of you that perhaps today was your first time seeing Wealthbox, or you'd like to see how Wealthbox and Asset Map, not only that integration that we discussed, but also that workflow works as well, please do reach out to our team, sales@wealthbox.com, or right from our website at wealthbox.com. We'd love to dive into that further with you. For those that may have seen Asset Map for the first time today and were absolutely blown away and seeing some of the functionality there, and also what can be put together to work with clients and prospects on, definitely reach out to the Asset Map team at hello@asset-map.com or asset-map.com. And again, we look forward to having those conversations with you. With that, again, Adam and Allison, thank you so much for joining today, and we appreciate the partnership with the Asset Map team. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Same to you. Thanks, Andrew.